My name is Happy Gilmore. I haven't swung a club in years.
You know what you gotta do.
Grip it and rip it.
Or... Oh, now that is some Happy Gilmore.
Everyone is talking about the comeback kid, Happy Gilmore.
Happening.
Yeah, baby.
Happy Gilmore 2, only on Netflix July 25th. Rated PG-13, may be inappropriate for children under 13.
I'm always looking for ways to show my cat how much I love her. And with Fancy Feast gems, I can pamper her whenever I want with a savory gravy on top of a gourmet mousse pâté. The pyramid shape makes serving simple, so all I have to do is peel and plate to make mealtime feel extra fancy. And with 2 entrees in every pack, it's easy to turn every day into the extraordinary. Fancy Feast gems.
Finding a new job is stressful. But with Indeed, it doesn't have to be. Just fill out your Indeed profile with your skills, experience, and desired salary. The more you fill out, the better your matches will be. And hearing from hiring managers will be 2 times more likely. Relax. That's your Indeed profile sending opportunities your way. Indeed, the world can work better.
This is the FPL Draft Zone, your fantasy team's best signing of the season.
Hello and welcome to the FPL Draft Zone, a podcast all about Draft FPL. I'm Dom Crofts. I hope you are well. And today we are doing something slightly different. Normally, we are an audio-only podcast. You can find us on whatever podcast platform you like. If you try and find us on YouTube, you will find us, but you will be greeted by nothing more than audio and an FPL Draft Zone logo. But today, that is going to change. Today, we are visual and audio on YouTube. And to help me get through this brave new world is a very special guest. He is a Watford fan. He is an experienced FPL manager. He is crucially for this show an experienced FPL draft manager, and he is also the host of the Form is Temporary podcast. It's Roberto Hollis. Roberto, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you, Dom. Great intro. I always, it feels weird being this side of the intros because I'm always used to doing them for, the Form is Temporary. But no, you did a very great job, and it's a pleasure to be on. Really excited for this one.
That's very kind of you, sir. Thank you very much. So let's find out a little bit about you then. You obviously host the Form is Temporary podcast. How long have you been doing that for now?
So we're going into in 2025-26 our 3rd season of that. We started around sort of end of September 2023. So we kind of joined around game week 6, game week 7 of the 23-24 season. And yeah, it's been really fun. It's weird now because going into this season, I've now finished my uni degree. So what we always did was I sort of set it up with my uni mate, Chris, and we always recorded it in our sort of lecture building where we had like podcast studios to do it. So we were so used to doing it in Lincoln where I went to uni. But now that my degree's over and I'm graduating in September, it's going to be weird like doing it remotely from now on. But it's pretty surreal, to be honest, to say that I've had some great, been lucky enough to have some great people on and really enjoyed the pod. And we've got our new co-host booked in for this season as well, Kanji FPL, previously of FPL Roundtable. So really excited for the new season, and it's going to be a great one, I think.
And you've been playing FPL for a lot longer than 3 seasons as well, haven't you?
Yeah, no, I started in 2018-19. And the first couple of seasons, I know a lot of people say it when they don't have good rank histories, but I genuinely wasn't playing seriously. And then around 2020-21, that season, something changed for me where I was like, right, let's take this seriously. And I started getting involved as well with another really great content creator, FPL Juice. I started sort of doing some videos for them. And then sort of that's where it kind of kicked off for me in terms of creating content on my YouTube the following season. And then, the sort of couple seasons after that, that's when the pod was born, really.
And when did you discover FPL Draft?
FPL Draft mode is actually something I've been playing longer than I started at playing FPL. So I started FPL in 18-19, and I started playing draft the season before, because I just found it as a nice sort of introductory way into FPL, because I knew that there was like a lot of complicated rules and chips with the main game in 17-18, and I thought, well, let's just get myself, into it, a little taste to see what it's like. And once I'd really enjoyed that first season of draft, I was like, I'm going to keep playing draft, but get into the main game and start to properly, have to work with money and having limited spaces for each club. So yeah, it's been a thing I've always enjoyed, draft. I've done it every season with my family as well. It's the family mini leagues that we always do at the start of the season, where we have the draft day and like we have the order we go in and we set a certain date. It's funny because I feel like the last couple of seasons I've won the family league, and other people in the family make out that they don't take the draft seriously and that they're all about the main game. But, there are some that make changes every week, some that leave their team. So it's always interesting to see.
But today, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of the signings coming into the Premier League this season. There's some big names who have joined. We're going to be looking predominantly at those who have joined the sort of top 5, top 6 clubs. And we're just going to get your thoughts and my thoughts on how we think we should prioritise them come draft night, how high up we think we should value them, and whether or not we think they're going to be successful buys for their respective clubs. So we're going to start with Arsenal. And they look, I don't think it's 100% in the bag yet, but they look like they have finally found their striker. And that striker is Victor Gyökeres, who has joined or is about to join from Sporting Lisbon in Portugal, where he's done, I think it's fair to say, quite well.
Yeah.
54 goals and 13 assists in 54 games last season, and 43 goals and 15 assists in 50 games the season before, making it an 125 attacking return tally in his last 94 club games. Now, am I right in thinking you're part Portuguese?
Yeah, I'm half Portuguese, yeah.
Half Portuguese, because one of the things that people have said about this record in Portugal is that the Portuguese league cannot be compared to the Premier League, and that nobody coming from Portugal has been a success in England outside of Bruno Fernandes, which I think is a bit harsh because Raul Jimenez has come from Portugal. The new Bournemouth striker has come as well. Evan Nielsen.
Ronaldo
as well. Yeah, who can forget him?
Yeah.
So it does seem a little bit harsh. But what are your thoughts on the standard of the Portuguese league and whether or not we think Victor Gyökeres can transfer some of this sort of form into England?
Yeah, I think it is really interesting because you do see like what with the recent Club World Cup, you had Porto and Benfica, and Sporting weren't, selected for that. And it was based off sort of previous Champions League success. And actually, I think it does get a bit of a bad rep, the Portuguese league. But I think Liga NOS is actually stronger than a lot of people think, especially when you look at how well Benfica have done in recent years. I mean, their trophy cabinet is very full. And it's, it doesn't take, a bad team to win as many trophies as they have. They're only 2 more trophies away from adding a star to their badge. They do it every sort of 10 trophies. They're now on 38 league titles. And yeah, they have been the dominant team alongside Porto. But Sporting have also had, decent success in recent seasons. I just think when it comes to players coming from the Portuguese league, people look at it as like they think it's a bit of a farmers league. I think, honestly, I think it's a bit harsh to say that because you see a lot of the Portuguese young players now. As someone who watches the Portuguese national team a lot, we've got such kind of depth and good players, young players coming through the academy. One player, of course, who just joined Watford, actually, Vivaldo Semedo, who, a lot of young players around the European stage, but a lot of them seem to be Portuguese, it seems. And yeah, the league is competitive, but I think when it comes to someone like Gyökeres, we can sort of marry it up to other players that have come from the league. So, players like Renato Sanchez, who, some people might remember joining Swansea and not doing anything. He was a great player for Portugal in the Euros trophy win, but there's certain players are more suited, I think, to the Premier League than others, especially when it comes to Gyökeres, where he's had a great record as well in the Championship. And the Championship's also a very competitive and difficult league. And as a Watford fan watching Coventry and Gyökeres, you just knew he was a different player. He was a different level. So I think it will definitely be an exciting league for him to join and an exciting challenge for him. But yeah, as you said, the pedigree he's already shown at Sporting and Coventry just shows that he could probably adapt quite quickly to the Premier League. And I think, yeah, definitely an exciting addition to draft potentially.
He's also got 15 goals in 26 games for his country. He got 9 in the UEFA Nations League, although he was in one of the lower reaches of the Nations League. So that were goals against teams like Estonia, Azerbaijan, sides like that. He's not short of confidence, though. He was asked recently in an interview on whether he thought he was up there as one of the best strikers in the world. He said, "I'm definitely one of them. I am at the same table as them now," referring to the likes of Erling Haaland and Alexander Isak. "What I have managed to do at Sporting, I am convinced I can achieve anywhere. You haven't seen the best of me yet." Now, Arsenal obviously already have Kai Havertz, who Mikel Arteta adores. How worried do you think we should be about the fact that these two could be sharing minutes up front?
Yeah, I think it is a problem because, Arsenal just lacked any sort of striking potential and sort of striking position last season. That there wasn't a consistent goal scorer for them. But, Gyökeres at the age of 27, he's not like, early into his career. He's sort of in peak sort of part of his career now. So I do think he is going to get in ahead of Havertz. But the thing with Havertz is I don't see him completely being dropped out the side because, he was being used in different positions across his time at Chelsea and at Arsenal. So I don't think he's, completely off the table for our draft sides. But I think we are going to probably favour Gyökeres when he's had that goal record. And Havertz has had his criticism at Arsenal. I think some of it more unfair than others because he has scored goals for them, especially, 23-24. He was, quite prolific for them at the end of the season. But yeah, last season just wasn't his season. And I think if he does stay in the side, potentially playing in a different position and Gyökeres can sort of help increase his confidence, then maybe it might not be the end for Kai Havertz.
Yeah, you're right. He could easily fill in that left 8 slot as well, couldn't he? Or even sort of alternate with Odegaard on the right-hand side. Arsenal have also been trying to strengthen the wing positions, and they've signed someone or again on the cusp of signing, I should say, to be clear at the time of recording, Noni Madueke from Chelsea. He got 7 goals and 5 assists in 2,028 minutes last season, which works out an attacking return every 1.8 games. 13 goals and 7 assists overall for Chelsea across 67 games. And in the Eredivisie, he got 19 returns in 51 games. So he's sort of a 1 in 3 kind of man, I would say. There's obviously competition for places. It doesn't seem very likely that he's going to be ousting Bukayo Saka from the right-hand side anytime soon. Do you think he's been brought in as a replacement for Martinelli, or do you think he's been brought in as a rotation option for Saka?
I think he's probably a rotation replacement for Martinelli because I think Martinelli did have a really poor season last season, and I do feel that with Arsenal, they've got a lot of squad depth in their defensive positions, but it's their attack where they have struggled with that, where players have got injured like Odegaard or Saka, and it's been hard to replace them. I think Arteta's looked at Madueke and look, there has been a lot of complaints from Arsenal fans about this transfer, and I don't really see why, because yes, he is sort of a player who's not quite fulfilled his potential yet, and he's had spells of really good sort of games for Chelsea, that hat-trick against Wolves last season, but he's definitely a player with high ceiling. He's a player with high potential, and if Arteta can see that in him, I think Arsenal fans should trust Arteta's sort of vision there. So I think he's an exciting player for the draft. And yeah, we'll have to see how he settles in, whether or not he is going to be starting ahead of Martinelli. But I think he's, definitely a great option for Arsenal to have. If they do get injuries, he's a great player to lean on.
Yeah, he seems like the sort of player that we're going to find out a lot more about in pre-season, how much he's playing ahead of Martinelli and what sort of role he's going to occupy. I guess he's a watch and wait for now in terms of draft. Let's move on to Chelsea, who have been busy as well. They've brought in a couple of forward players, one of which is this man, Liam Delap. 12 goals and 2 assists for him last season in an Ipswich shirt. He's teaming up again with Enzo Maresca and Cole Palmer, and those three were all part of a Manchester City under-23 side where Liam Delap got 35 goals in 36 games and 9 assists as well, playing alongside Cole Palmer while being coached by Enzo Maresca. Now, he had a strong campaign last year. He was one of those players who I don't think anyone was really looking at on draft night. And yet, as the weeks went by, it was a clamour to get him in as quickly as you could. But he's going to have some serious competition for his place up front, isn't he? And we're going to talk about João Pedro in a moment. But where would you sort of put Liam Delap in terms of the sort of forward options you'd be looking at on draft night?
I think he's got to be high up on our priorities just because of that Chelsea fixture start. And he is going to be a player, I think, that's going to get a lot of minutes. Now, the situation around Nicholas Jackson is very interesting because he's had rumours away at Manchester United and other clubs. I don't really see Jackson being the main striker next season. I think Delap has been brought in to play a good amount of minutes. Now, as you said, with João Pedro, it's going to be interesting where Enzo decides to play him because at Brighton, where Pedro thrived was playing in the 10 and Welbeck was the man up top. Now, Delap is a really good sort of well-oiled striker that, you know, is so good at holding up the ball and kind of going in, taking on balls in behind and finishing from close range. He is that sort of striker. I don't think João Pedro is the same sort of player. So it is interesting. You know, you saw Pedro in the game against, in the Club World Cup for Chelsea, where Pedro was playing almost as a 9 and sort of ghosting in. I think it's flexible. And I think that's what Enzo Maresca wants. He wants options up front because when Jackson did get injured, you know, there was a kind of big drop in quality where, you know, some of their lone players they've had brought back to the club, like Armando Broja, is just not seems to be cutting it at Chelsea at the moment. So I think it's a really good signing. I think Delap needs the game time because he's too good ultimately for the Championship. It's just whether or not they can play to his strengths. But I think he's an exciting addition. And as you said, Enzo Maresca's got that relationship, as has Cole Palmer. And, you know, he'll have seen Enzo Maresca with his time at Leicester, how good that was in the Championship with Ipswich. And I think he's already proven he's done well in the Premier League as well.
And Delap also played for Hull in the Championship where he was used on the wings.
Yeah.
Which is something that I don't know if that's something that Chelsea would entertain. They've got so many options up front now. They've got Esteval Villan as well coming in. They've just got Pedro Neto as well. It feels like they've got so many options. It's going to be managers in draft who are going to make decisions that they hope are going to be for the season that could completely backfire.
Yeah.
I do think Delap will get a fair amount of game time, but whether or not he's going to start up front from the outset, I'm not sure. Mainly because of the form of João Pedro, who absolutely tore it up at the Club World Cup, having joined the club halfway through the tournament without any pre-season fitness behind him. Last season, he got 10 goals and 6 assists. 5 of those 10 goals were penalties. Whether or not he's going to get penalties from Cole Palmer is another matter. 9 goals and 3 assists the season before. And of course, he also played for Watford, 24 goals in 109 games. Go on then, give us your love letter to João Pedro.
Honestly, I just love this man so much. I mean, he's just something about him where he wears his heart on his sleeve. And sometimes, you know, Brighton fans will sort of agree with this, that sometimes he can get a little bit carried away where it's sort of getting up in players' faces and sometimes getting himself in trouble. But what I love about him is he's passionate and he cares so much about the clubs he plays for. And one thing I always was so amazed by when he was at Watford was just his sort of passion for flair, really. Because you see it a lot in the sort of modern day football now where commentators and pundits are saying, oh, you know, there's this sideways passing. It's all about systems and players are very sort of restricted. Pedro is that sort of player who brings back the life into the game. And a bit like Eberechi Eze sometimes does, and Palmer himself just sort of is ready to take on a game by himself and take it by the scruff of the neck. And yeah, João Pedro, the versatility of him is why I think he's so impressive, because he's not just a great sort of hold-up player where he can sort of let other wingers come into it. And a lot of times for Watford, he was playing in a central position. But as he's shown at Brighton, he can sort of develop his game to be more creative, not just be that target man, but also link up the play and be a big sort of part of creating chances. And yeah, I mean, his finishing, I mean, he scores goals from outside the box on a regular basis, and his penalty record is so strong. And obviously with Palmer missing penalty last season, I do wonder, you know, it's going to be an interesting decision that Enzo makes there, because yeah, he's just so good at penalties. But yeah, one thing I'm going to say is that when the draft day happens, he's going to be in my team. Like, unless someone gets there first, which I will absolutely be gutted about. Yeah, he's going to be in my team, and might well be in my FPL team as well. Just because if his price is nice, I just think, especially if he comes in, I don't think he will, by the way, but if he comes in as a midfielder, I think that could be a real game changer because you get the extra point for the goal and the clean sheet. But yeah, it really excites me, and I know a lot of people are sort of throwing caution to the wind with him because they are concerned that he won't play more than about 60 minutes in each game with all the Chelsea options. But the thing is, the quality of this guy, he could score a couple of attacking returns and go off, and you'd be very happy with that. So yeah, absolutely love him, and it's hard to take out bias with this one, but yeah, he's a special talent.
Would it put you off if he wasn't guaranteed the number 9 position, given the prominence of Delap in that side?
It probably wouldn't, because the thing is, with what I said about him being versatile, now Cole Palmer is going to probably still play in the 10, but Pedro's shown he's very effective in that position. But if Chelsea want to try and start Delap and Pedro together, they could always have Pedro on the left, potentially. Now Madueke's gone, and if you want to keep Delap in the 9 as well, with Neto alongside, I just think that's a frightening front four, and it would be really exciting to see that. But whether or not Enzo goes that attacking, we'll have to see at the start of the season. But yeah, definitely, even just off the bench, getting attacking returns, he's always involved. And if he is a striker and he keeps getting the striker's sort of advantages when it comes to bonus points in the main game, that will help. But even in the draft game, yeah, if he's sort of always getting involved, getting minutes off the bench, he'll start to get returns, I believe.
He is a great player. What I would say about him, having seen him against my team several times, he loves a bit of shithousery, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's happy to fall over. I mean, did you see the Club World Cup final where he tried to win a penalty? And it was some of them are painfully embarrassing. Yeah. Luis Enrique seems like one of the nicest men in football, and even he wanted to punch him in the face. So, I mean, he's a great player, but whether or not he's a good man, I'm not so sure. Let's talk about Manchester City, who have also strengthened their attacking options. They brought in Tijani Rangers from AC Milan, but they've also brought in this man, Ryan Cherki from Lyon. 19 attacking returns in 30 games last season, 8 goals and 11 assists. He was in the top 1% of players across Europe's top 5 leagues for assists, expected assists, key passes and through balls. However, last season was very much his breakout season. The season before, he managed just 1 goal and 6 assists in 33 games. He started one in the Club World Cup, looked really good, showed us some pretty impressive skills as well on the touchline a couple of times. Do we think Ryan Cherki is one of those players that is just immediately going to transfer that sort of form to England? Or do you think he's going to be one of those players, like a lot of players who come from other countries, who struggles to make an impact in that first season, and we might see the best of him maybe in the second half of the campaign, or maybe even in his second season?
Yeah, I think this will be a sort of a Jeremy Doku sort of situation where he will have a better second season. And the same goes for, players that have come through Man City before, like Jack Grealish. Sometimes it does take them a while just to sort of get ready and get acclimatized. And yeah, I think there is pressure on Ryan Cherki because of him coming in as potentially like the De Bruyne sort of replacement, so to speak. And yeah, his stats are really impressive. The thing I worry about is, just that adjustment. And he had a great season last year, but I think he has been sort of overhyped a little bit just because of what we saw with him. He scored some great goals, especially with France as well in the Nations League. But I do worry, that there's a little bit too much pressure being put on him to deliver, maybe in the absence of De Bruyne. But yeah, I really rate the player, and I think he will be a key sort of player for Man City. From an FPL point of view, I think it is a wait and see, though, and we'll have to see where he's playing as well. If he plays in a bit of a deeper role, then it might not get as many attacking returns as we expect. But yeah, he could definitely be one to watch and potentially become a stronger asset later in the season.
Manchester City have obviously got a lot of attacking options. You mentioned Jeremy Doku. They've got Savinho still. And they've also got Phil Foden, who I think is going to be a very difficult man to work out what to do with when it comes to draft night. Because obviously 2 years ago, he was player of the season, absolutely fantastic. Last season, form fell off a cliff. in the Club World Cup started to show glimpses that maybe he could get back to his best, but now obviously he's got competition from Turkey as well. Where do you think you're going to sit with Phil Foden when it comes to draft night? If he's available in round 2, would you be tempted, or would you be looking to push it back to round 3 and hope for the best from there?
I think it would probably be a push back to round 3, just because, I mean, I know that everyone, part of the name of the podcast, form is temporary, right? He has had a bad season, but there's still a class player there. And that is for sure. The thing with him is that I do worry about where he gets played sometimes. He doesn't necessarily get played in the position that suits him because of the depth of options Manchester City have. They have a system that Pep is happy with, and other players at the team are excelling in those positions. You can't just kind of shove him in, break up the rest of the system. With Foden, yeah, he is a quality player, but I'd need to see him back at his best, a bit more confidence, because at the moment he's going through a tough time. And I think it is, he'll want to have a good season with the World Cup, on the horizon next year. But it's just, I think we need to still see Phil enjoying his football again before we can start considering him. But definitely, if you get to draft night and there are a lack of good options, and if for whatever reason, Foden has not been picked yet, then he's still a great player. So snapping him up would definitely be a lot better than a lot of the sort of talismanic players from the worst side. So definitely worth consideration, but not for me at the moment.
Yeah, again, he's one of those that we're going to watch in pre-season and hopefully learn a little more about the sort of form he's showing and where he ranks in Pep's plans. We shall see. Let's move on to Newcastle United, who have spent big money on this man, Anthony Elanga, who I was quite surprised was the 13th highest scoring midfielder last year. I wasn't aware, really, that he sort of crept up that high. He got 6 goals and 11 assists for Forest. I suppose the drawback with him is the competition for places. Anthony Gordon still at the club, being linked with a move to Arsenal over the last few days. Whether or not that comes to fruition, we shall see. Murphy had a good season as well. Harvey Barnes finished the campaign strongly too. Do you think Elanga's been bought as a guaranteed starter? And how highly would you regard him when it comes to draft?
It is really interesting with Elanga because he is quite a bit like we talk about with Joao Pedro, quite a flexible player for Newcastle, because there was points last season when Elanga was almost playing a bit of a false 9 alongside Chris Wood, and they were almost playing sort of centrally with each other. And now obviously Alexander Isak is going to be crucial for Newcastle to keep hold of him, with the rumours of Liverpool and Ekitike potentially as well. I'm wondering with the depth of options now that one of those players potentially does go for Newcastle. And you said about Gordon, and I think Gordon did have a poor season, and so I think he's been brought in, Elanga, just to raise the profile and raise the sort of level of the other attackers at the club, because they do sort of struggle a little bit when it comes to if a player gets injured, like a Gordon. A few seasons ago, there was kind of a drop in quality for the rest of the squad, but now there is a lot of quality. It'd be very harsh on Murphy to not get his start, because he was one of the best players of the season last year. And Barnes had a really good spell towards the end of the season. So working out who starts is a big headache. But again, a bit like with Phil Foden, we're going to have to just watch where Elanga plays and how many minutes he gets in pre-season. But you would imagine he will play a key part for Newcastle this year with the amount of money he's gone for. So yeah, he's an exciting player, and I think he is a player who deserves, a good run in the team, because if it is a situation where, a little bit like at Manchester United, he gets the occasional game, then it will be a shame, because he definitely got bags of ability. But I'd imagine he'd have gone there, knowing that Forest had European football already. He'd have gone there knowing, okay, yes, I get Champions League, but it's not just that. I'll potentially want a bit more football, at a bigger club potentially. But we'll have to see how Nottingham Forest do if they do have Europa League football, where they end up this season. But I think it's exciting for Newcastle, because they'll have someone like Isak to finish chances. He could definitely be a key assister for him.
Who would you rather, Anthony Gordon or Elanga, when it comes to draft night?
I think it has to be... It's tough, because Gordon's got the previous, 2023-24, Gordon was one of the best players in the league. Last season, he was just not at it. I do think that is going to knock his confidence a little bit. And I do think with the rumours of him potentially moving away, I think Elanga has got my vote at the moment. But that is obviously before we've seen Elanga play consistently. So yeah, I'd say Gordon probably takes a back seat for now, and I'd say Elanga. But yeah, we know Gordon's got the quality, and if he goes for a run, Elanga, of a few bad games, then yeah, Gordon could definitely be back on our radar.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love, starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
What does every USAA member have in common? Family. We're one big family who supports the military community and their eligible families. And if you, your parent, or spouse served, you could join our family and save big on auto insurance. Visit USAA.com/join today to check your eligibility. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
Okay, let's talk Tottenham then. They've also brought in a winger, Mohamed Kudus from West Ham. Interestingly, similar records at West Ham to what he had at Ajax. 25 attacking returns in 65 games at the Hammers, 26 attacking returns in 65 games in the Eredivisie. Really fell off a cliff his form last year, 5 goals and 4 assists, whether or not he just suddenly gave up the ghost at West Ham and just thought, I just can't be doing with this anymore. A lot of upheaval at that club over the last few years may well have impacted his form. He, like Elanga, has got a fair bit of competition for his place. Kulusevski, Brennan Johnson, who Thomas Frank absolutely loves, tried to sign him for Brentford, and Heung-min Son as well. But you don't spend £55 million on a player when you're Spurs unless you're planning to play him every week, do you?
No, I think he is going to get a good, considerable amount of game time. I think this does make things interesting for the other options, though, because Brennan Johnson had a fantastic season. He was probably Tottenham's best player of the season when it came to FPL points in particular. And obviously, kind of almost single-handedly carrying them towards that Europa League. So it's tricky with Kudus because I love the player. I just worry about where he fits in the system, whether or not it's a situation a bit like when, a lot of times like a big fish in a small pond. When he was at West Ham, he did really well because I think he was happy with his connection with Bowen, and he was happy to be a big star in a slightly smaller team. But with Spurs, I do worry he might get a little bit outshone by other players. But I think there's no doubting the quality is there, and we could get to game week 1 and think, well, Solanke had a poor season, but there's more creativity behind him. Could he be better? And also with sort of minutes in doubt for Johnson, maybe a lot of doubt around Maddison because of his kind of iffy season last year. Maybe it could get to the point where we just say Kudus is probably the best Tottenham attacker going into the season. So we know he's proven in the Premier League. It's just whether or not he's got that same chemistry and connection with his teammates. But I definitely love the player, and I think he could well be actually in my sort of top 5 picks for draft night, because we know Kudus, even if he doesn't get the ground running, he's going to eventually really click in his Tottenham team, I believe. And great player. So I think it's a great signing actually for Tottenham to just give them more options, because Son has struggled recent seasons. They just need a bit more firepower up top, and he definitely, I think, provides that. Yeah, pace, power and finishing ability could be a very astute pickup on draft night. Let's take a look at Liverpool. They've brought in Jeremy Frimpong from Bayer Leverkusen as a replacement for Trent Alexander-Arnold. Conor Bradley may have a say in that. I'm not sure he will, to be honest. Frimpong got 5 goals and 6 assists in 33 league games in Germany last year. Works out about an attacking return every 3 games. He got an attacking return every 2 games in the Champions League with 5 assists in 10 matches. And when Leverkusen won the double, 14 goals and 12 assists in 47 games.
if you were going to create a replacement for Trent Alexander-Arnold, use some of his DNA and clone someone as close as you can get to Trent Alexander-Arnold, is Jeremy Frimpong that man?
I think he is. I mean, the thing with Frimpong is going to be really exciting to see is where he plays, because you've seen it with some players around clubs like Dortmund and some of their fullbacks starting to like get into midfield and like, becoming, if it was, in the Premier League, they just become an absolute lock because, when Joao Cancelo was going into midfield and when these attacking defenders start to play further forward, there's the, greater chances of those FPL points. And, a little bit like with Dumfries, I think at Netherlands, I think Frimpong is he's got that license. He's been given that license in his previous clubs to go forward. I mean, the 5 assists in 10 in Champions League is, no mean feat because it's a very sort of high level there. And yeah, I mean, that 47 games with Leverkusen, if he can get those sort of numbers of those sort of attacking returns, potentially looking at, sort of combined close to 30 attacking returns, I mean, that will just be an absolute game breaker. But I expect there to be a bit of an adjustment period. But even 5 goals in Bundesliga last season, I mean, that's something that for a defender we absolutely love, because players like Cucurella, players like Gvardiol are around sort of those goal tallies last season, and they were some of the best scoring defenders. Because I think we do have to look more towards attacking returns now with defenders in FPL and in draft zone, because I mean, especially with the FPL game, that sort of changed the bonus points with every goal conceded, just makes targeting clean sheets so difficult, and there aren't any at the moment anyway. So I think players like Frimpong are just an absolute gift for draft zone and for draft day. Really, he is one that I will be keeping an eye on. But it is that concern around minutes that I'm going to just be a little bit tentative with. If he comes up in draft, I think I'll pick him because he's a season keeper. But in the main game, at least, I would say I'd caution a little bit more, because Bradley was fantastic last season and he is a ready-made replacement for Trent. But I think Frimpong will just offer a bit more going forward.
I've got a bit more Frimpong propaganda for you.
Okay, let's have it.
30 chances created in the Bundesliga last season. No fullback had more shots on target in that league. 4.53 touches in the opposition box per 90 minutes. My question to you, Roberto, who is going to be your first defensive draft on draft night?
It's tough because you look on the other side and Kirkes is also very exciting because at least he's proven in the Premier League, whereas Frimpong, he might have an adjustment period. So I'd probably put Kirkes before Frimpong, but it's very tight because Frimpong's potential ceiling is absolutely massive. And it could just be that you don't go with Frimpong and you get him later, but the chances of him being available later are probably quite slim. So I don't know. I'd say I'd probably pick Kirkes before him. And I to be honest, I think before Kirkes, just because of how tricky Liverpool's opening fixtures are, I think my first pick in defence will probably be a Chelsea defender, because that run of fixtures for Chelsea is just so strong. So a Cucurella or a Colwill, as mad as it sounds, with their, Colwill especially, less attacking threat, I just think, whilst Chelsea are a bit less solid defensively, those attacking returns for Cucurella and those fixtures for Chelsea will probably put me towards him, I think.
Yeah, Arsenal's start isn't too strong, but Gabriel is another strong option at the back as well. I think his points per game was higher than anyone other than Trent last year before he got injured. So lots of decisions to make. Another decision to make in terms of Liverpool options. Florian Wirtz, who has joined the club for a lot of money, £116 million. He got 10 goals and 13 assists last season. In 197 games for Leverkusen, he got 121 attacking returns, working out 57 goals and 64 assists. His best ever tally was 18 goals in their double winning season. And he's one of only 2 players in Europe's top 5 leagues who has achieved double figures for both goals and assists in each of the last 2 seasons, the other player being Mo Salah. So Wirtz is almost certainly, I would think, going to come in as a midfielder. Where are you going to prioritise him on draft night, given the absolute goldmine that is the midfield options in fantasy this year?
It's so hard because when players have joined the Premier League previously for big money, I've always said avoid them because there's pressure before he's even kicked a ball with that price tag to live up to that. And when you come into a team like Liverpool, who are just trying to strengthen and keep their position at the top of the table, there's just so much pressure and so many eyes on him that I don't doubt how good he is as a player, but I do feel that the fee is a little bit excessive. Now, don't get me wrong, his record and his stats, speak for themselves at Bayer Leverkusen, and he was very impressive at the Euros as well for Germany. But I just do worry that he will take a bit of time to adjust, and where he plays is going to be interesting because Szoboszlai had a fantastic season playing in the 10. So does he just come in straight away, or does he, get minutes off the bench? I'm not sure. So I'd imagine he'll get his debut, but I'm just not so 100% sure I'd go straight in for him just because, the argument to play devil's advocate would be that everyone else will pick him first. So if you don't get him on draft night, yeah, you are going to struggle to get him. So yeah, he probably is, I'd say, third favourite Liverpool option in draft night. I'd go Salah and probably Kirkes before him, and then maybe Frimpong after Wirtz. But it's a tough one because there are some great Liverpool options, and the great thing about draft is having more than three. But when it comes to the main game, yeah, I think I'll struggle to start with him just because of the unknown. And I don't like to brandish him with the same brush, but a lot of players from the Bundesliga have struggled in the Premier League. Havertz being a great recent example, Timo Werner, but then you also look at players like Erling Haaland as well, and Son Heung-min, and they took to the Premier League like a duck to water. So we'll have to see. But it's a really exciting signing for the Premier League. Just I think a wait and see for FPL.
There are so many players who have come over from other countries who you've got to make a decision whether to roll the dice on, and you're going to have to do it in a round 1 or a round 2, aren't you? Or you're going to run the risk of handing him to someone else and him absolutely banging.
Yeah.
My question to you was that Florian Wirtz obviously is quite a versatile player. He can play on the left, can play on the right, can play in the 10, can also play as a false 9. Liverpool are being linked with Alexander Isak. They're being linked with Hugo Ekitike as well. It sounds like they're going to get a striker. If they don't get a striker and Florian Wirtz starts playing in friendlies in a false 9 position, is that going to change where you prioritise him among those Liverpool options?
Absolutely. If he comes in as the main false 9, the problem with Liverpool at the moment is the Darwin situation, because I think once Darwin goes, there'll be much more, interest in potentially a new striker or playing Wirtz in the 9. Because with Darwin, I do feel like Liverpool at the moment, they've got almost too many strikers, so they need space for another striker to fill in, because Diaz was playing quite centrally a lot of last season, and he can still play there. Gakpo obviously can also play centrally, but is probably better out on the left-hand side, as he showed last season. So it's a really tough decision to make because, Gakpo, Diaz, they all deserve game time. But I just do think Liverpool need another striker. So whether that is Wirtz, but I worry that because he's played a lot of his time, especially at Germany, in that deeper position, I feel like it could be another Havertz situation where, Liverpool try him out in the false 9 and it doesn't quite work. So I'd be a bit concerned if Liverpool didn't make a out and out striker signing, because I think that is what they need, like a classic number 9 to get onto the end of crosses from Salah and from Frimpong and Kirkes. But yeah, don't get me wrong, if Liverpool don't sign a striker and then he's confirmed playing further forward, that's an absolute exciting prospect. But again, there is risk attached because of his sort of unknown with Florian Wirtz.
Yeah, a lot of risk from all these players who've never played in the Prem before. One player who has played in the Prem before and has switched clubs is Cunha, who has signed for Manchester United. He is an overperforming monster. 15 goals and 7 assists last season from an XG of 8.7 and an XA of 5.3. And that is not an anomaly, guys. Last season and the season before, he has done it. In 2023-2024, 12 goals and 7 assists from an XG of 8.7 and an XA of 5.3. So where is he when it comes to your striker options for draft? And will he even play up front for Manchester United?
It's a really tricky one because Man United for many years have struggled to get a competent striker. And there is a sort of bemusement among Manchester United fans around how long it's been taking to get this Mbumo deal over the line. The problem is Man United keep signing players that aren't out-and-out strikers. Cunha could play that position, but he is sort of fine to play on the left at times, and he's played on the right as well. So he is versatile, Cunha. And this will be interesting to see as well, whether he comes in as a midfielder or not. I don't think he will, for what it's worth, but maybe he will. A little bit like the João Pedro situation. But with Cunha, as you said it just then, his overperformance in FPL is incredible. He's so clinical, but he's done it for 2 seasons running for Wolves. But I think part of that factoring in was he just enjoyed being the star, being the talisman. And at Manchester United, I just don't think he's going to have that luxury, because Bruno Fernandes is still at the club and he's going to hog a lot of, penalties, set pieces. I just think there might be a bit of a problem, not a problem, so to speak, for him personally, but from an FPL point of view, he might just be creating chances a little bit more than he was at Wolves, where as not as much getting on the end of chances or doing it all himself. It will be a bit more sort of selfless potentially. And, he could get more assists this season with Manchester United because players like Bruno Fernandes could finish off more chances. But I do think there is going to be less output. Now, Man United's fixtures to start the season anyway are really, really poor. So I think Cunha will be still quite low down on my sort of lists of forwards. But again, he could be one where if it gets to round 4 and no one snapped him up, then yeah, he definitely could be one of the better options out of the sort of bad bunch from the fixture point of view. But yeah, we can't doubt the player. He's a great player. It's just Manchester United have this sort of problem when they sign players, they just don't seem to hit the ground running often enough. You saw it with Xerxes, even him on the opening day, and then it just completely went to pot. So yeah, I just worry at Manchester United. They need to have a stronger window, I think, for Cunha to be a better pick at the moment. But we'll have to see how Man United get on with their other signings, I suppose.
Yeah, the downside to Manchester United is, of course, that they are currently a bit of a clown car of a football team. Okay, so they're the new signings that we're going to look at. Now I'm going to set you a little challenge, Roberto. I'm going to bring up images of the players that we've talked about and maybe a couple of others. And I'm going to ask you to rank them from 1 to 4 or 1 to 5, depending on position, in terms of who you would prioritise on draft night for your side. So we'll start with the defenders. And the options you've got here are Jeremy Frimpong, Gabriel of Arsenal, Vardiol of Manchester City, Daniel Munoz of Crystal Palace, and Milos Kerkez of Liverpool. So 2 Liverpool fullbacks, an Arsenal centre-back, Vardiol of City, and Munoz of Palace. How are you ranking these 5?
Oh, this is tough. You've picked basically my 5 favourite defenders in the game. So this will be really tight, I think. I think fixture-wise, you can't ignore Man City's fixtures. Now, they're not, don't get me wrong, they're not amazing. There's not loads of green fixtures to start the season, but there are easy fixtures there for Manchester City, because I do feel they are going to be stronger this season with Rodri going to come back, and Haaland, I think, will have a better season than last season. Whether or not he will be priced well, we'll have to see. But when it comes to the draft game, I think Man City defenders are still going to be valuable, because I think they can't keep doing what they did last season, where Ederson was just letting one in every game and they just weren't worth the value unless you went for Vardiol. Now, Vardiol is going to be a less attractive option, I think, because of Ait Nouri's sort of introduction, playing probably as a centre-back Vardiol. So I'm tempted to say Vardiol 1, but I'm actually going to say Kerkez 1, just because I think he's going to carry on where he left off at Bournemouth. He's so attacking. And yes, those Liverpool fixtures are quite poor to start with, but he could just be, come the end of the season, in the top 3 defenders for points, I think. So Kerkez for me, number 1. Then it's a tough one between Gabriel and Gvardiol for the next position. But I think because of the sort of strength when it comes to set pieces and scoring from set pieces with Arsenal, I think I'll go Gabriel 2, then Gvardiol for 3. And then for Munoz and Frimpong, it's a tough one, because those fixtures for Liverpool to start aren't great. And then we don't know about Frimpong's sort of proven asset, record in the Premier League. And then with Munoz, yes, he's an exciting player and he was the best FPL defender last season, but Palace have got that added bonus of playing in Europe, playing in the Conference League. So we'll have to see whether Munoz does get affected by that. But the problem is, well, not so much a problem. He's not going to be likely to miss Premier League games, because even in times when, Palace had games in the FA Cup, he'd never get rested. So I do struggle to see Munoz getting rested, but depends, I suppose, how far they do get in Europe. I have to put Munoz last here, I think, because I think Frimpong, those numbers you read out are just so exciting for the player he could be. So it's harsh on Munoz, this, but Palace's fixtures aren't too nice. So I'll go for Frimpong, probably 4, and then Munoz for 5.
Solid choice. Let's do midfielders then, and these are all prospects we have talked about already on today's show. So this is going to be slightly tougher. They probably won't come up quite as high in the early rounds as some of those defenders maybe. We've got Noni Madueke, assuming he signs for Arsenal, Anthony Elanga of Newcastle, Milos Kerkez of Liverpool, Cherki of Manchester City, and Mohamed Kudus of Spurs. So how are you dishing these up?
Do you know what? I think Milos Kerkez is such a good FPL defender that he's rent-free in your head that we're on midfielders and we're already talking about him. But Florian Wirtz, I think...
oh, did I say Kerkez?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's all good. It's all good. Florian Wirtz is definitely in my head. He is just that player that, when you come with that expectation, that reputation, they can't have signed him for, that they've got so many great players they could buy. Liverpool have got a great sort of financial power and financial pool. They had to think about who they'd bring in. And the fact they've gone for him, he is an exciting player and he is going to probably score a lot of returns across the season for one of the best attacks in the league, probably the best attack. So I have to put Florian Wirtz number 1. I think Kudus comes in at number 2 though, because I really rated him at West Ham and I think Spurs will create chances for him. Then the next one is probably a tough one between Elanga and Madueke. I think with Madueke, I'm not so confident about how he fits in. I mean, yes, there's a player in there. I know it's true, but again, I think he will take a bit of time to adjust. So I think I'm going to go Elanga for 3, and then Madueke 4 and Cherki 5, just because Cherki's new to the league, and don't know how he'll fit in. Whereas I see, Wirtz being a key part of that Liverpool side.
Very good. I'm quite high on Cherki at the moment. I've been lulled into. I've basically been seduced by his skills in that Club World Cup and from the sort of comps that I've seen.
Yeah,
he is a player who obviously is playing from a team that is going to be right up there, challenging for the title. If he is even half the player that we think he is, and he gets the minutes. I think I put him second.
Really interesting. Well,
I think so.
I rate the player. I just don't like the fact he plays for a Pep Guardiola side. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
Yeah,
we shall see, I suppose. Let's take a look at the forwards, and these are all players that we've talked about today as well. We've got Victor Gyökeres, Liam Delap, João Pedro, otherwise known as number 1 pick, I suspect, and Cunha. How are you ranking these?
Oh, this is so tough because the thing about Arsenal is they're so good at creating chances, but so poor at finishing them. And so is this the player that Arsenal have been waiting for? And it could well be an absolute game changer for our draft teams. I mean, Arsenal's fixtures are pretty bad to start the season, but if you're looking along the whole season, Arsenal will be up there challenging. And I think they probably will be up there as much as Chelsea will be up there because people have been rumouring about, will Chelsea go again this season and be challenging? I'm not sure they will. I think they are a season away from that. But I think they'll be scoring goals. Even if they don't necessarily get sort of high up in the table, they will score a lot of goals, Chelsea, with the attacking talent they have. And I think I have to say, Cunha without penalties will just be lower down for me. And who knows, Saka being on penalties isn't great for Gyökeres, but he may well, Saka, give some of them to Gyökeres. So I think you're looking at potentially Gyökeres being on penalties. So I've got to put him 1, I think. As much as I'd love to say João Pedro, I think I'm going to go Gyökeres 1, just because his goal record is insane for Sporting. And yeah, he could well, be given some by Saka. I mean, don't get me wrong, Palmer could well give some to Pedro. It's just whether or not Delap gets more minutes than Pedro. I really hope he doesn't. I think I'm going to go Pedro number 2. I think I'm going to back my boy. And then I'm going to say Delap number 3 and Cunha number 4.
That sounds like a solid choice as well. I suppose the problem with Delap and Pedro and Gyökeres is that risk of rotation. How often are they going to play? Where are they going to play? I mean, Gyökeres, you would assume, will start up front most weeks.
Yeah.
But Havertz is there in the background pushing for his place. So we'll see. It's a really good shout about Cunha on pens as well. That is a massive blow for Cunha, isn't it, this season? Okay, well, I feel like we've put to bed the new signings. But, of course, there is now the troubling decision to make as to who you're going to draft first on draft night. The general consensus is it's going to be Mohamed Salah because he had outrageous numbers last year. He's always getting double-digit returns for goals and assists year in, year out. But it is an AFCON year this year, and that means he could miss potentially between 6 and 8 games this season, which is a lot. It's almost almost a quarter of the season. Is that right?
Yeah.
No, 16, 24. Yeah, well, let's go with that. So we're going to take a look at 5 potential first picks on draft night, and I want to get your thoughts, and then we're going to make a decision as to who we think it should be. So we have to start with Mo Salah. Here are his stats over the last 3 years. They're quite impressive. He's played over 3,000 minutes in 2 of those 3 seasons. In every season, he did get double figures for goals and assists. Last season was absolutely ridiculous. 29 goals and 18 assists from an XG of 24.7 and an XA of 8.9. So massive overperformance. But even without that overperformance, he was expected to get nearly 34 attacking returns. He is going to go to AFCON. He was fully fit for every single game last season. He wasn't the season before. Do we think he's going to replicate this form again this year? Or do we think that it's going to have to end at some point? He's getting older. He's got international commitments. Is he the go-to first choice? Or are there doubts as to whether there's someone else who might be a better first pick this year?
It's never in doubt for me. I mean, he is just an overpowered FPL pick for both draft and the game. He's just, I think the biggest thing with him is he hogs up those bonus points. Every single time you see an attacking return for him, he's getting the bonus points. If it's for another team, the bonus points might be a bit more evenly spread because there's kind of great options at other clubs. But Salah is just so clear of every other Liverpool asset that, yeah, he's just, for me, an absolute perma pick. And the thing with him will be interesting is how much Trent's absence hurts him, because how many of those goals in that graphic do you reckon were assisted by Trent? Probably quite a lot. So that is going to hurt him. Whether or not Kirkes and Frimpong can step up to that assisting plate, so to speak, will be interesting. But I just think even in seasons where Trent hasn't been his best, Salah's just been ridiculous. And I think as well, like, you know, rest in peace, of course, to Diogo Jota. I think, you know, Salah did really enjoy that link up with players like Jota and players like Diaz at times. And one thing which will be interesting to see is how Salah can keep on scoring this season, because I think, especially with Wirtz in the team, will Wirtz hog off, you know, a lot of the chances? And Salah won't like that because we know he's a greedy FPL pick. But I just wonder where does Salah sort of kind of go to keep exceeding our expectations, because I don't think he can replicate last season. That was absolutely insane. But I'd be very, very, very shocked if he didn't surpass 200 points once again. It's just, I'm not sure he's as much of a lock as he was ahead of 24-25, but I still think he's clear enough ahead of everyone else that he's still going to be number one for me.
It's interesting as well you mentioned the bonus points, because I looked it up yesterday. He got, I think, 55 or 50 bonus points last year, and he was about 14 points clear of the next man down, which was Chris Wood.
Yeah, and I believe that's like an all-time bonus points record as well. It's like he's broken every record last season, basically. So, yeah, it'd be hard to not have him as number one, I think.
Yeah, and if he can strike up a bit of chemistry with Wirtz as well, those two could be supplying chances to each other. They could both absolutely perform. However, Erling Haaland cannot be discounted because he had a pretty extraordinary season just a couple of seasons ago. In 2022-2023, he finished with 272 points, got 36 goals and 9 assists. Some people thought he was off the boil last year. I think that's a fair statement, but he still ended up with 22 goals and 3 assists, which is not bad. Do we think that if City bounce back this year and you'd have to fancy them to bounce back this year, or certainly to some degree, that we're going to see a return to the 2022-2023 Erling Haaland?
I don't think we're going to get that high of 22-23 because that was just insane. But I think we're going to get somewhere between 2023 and 2024-25 because, maybe like 24-25 goals, because I still think it's going to be a strong season for Haaland. Especially one thing I think is the factor, which sounds weird, but I think the key part of that Man City team is Rodri. And it sounds weird that that's good for Haaland, but I genuinely think it is so important that City have Rodri in that system because it allows the rest of the attack to be balanced and then sort of facilitating Haaland more and being more sort of on his wavelength. So I think Haaland is going to have a good season. Price will be so important for the main game, but for draft, if he does come up as if you don't get Salah, he is definitely the number 2 because it's just his explosive potential. And when he's, in the team, he is capable of, as he showed in previous years, back-to-back hat-tricks. So I think he could be an absolute no-brainer. I think the thing that will be really interesting, on draft night will be who will be number 3, because I think Palmer had a really big drop-off. Saka was injured for a lot of last season. Son was really poor last season, and Wirtz was coming in. Some of these premiums outside of the big 2 are going to be a really kind of competitive battle. Isak inside as well. But where it kind of comes into number 2, I think it is definitely Haaland, and we just have to hope that City have a better season because they were really poor. And for a lot of points last season, Haaland, when it comes to price in particular, wasn't delivering enough for what we expect. So, yeah, I do think for draft zone, he is a bit of a no-brainer, really.
Okay, well, assuming then that Salah is first pick and Haaland is second, you mentioned that third pick, it all becomes a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at Bukayo Saka, who obviously had his own injury problems last year, missed 3 months of the season with a hamstring injury. That impacted his return and his minutes, managed just 1,724 minutes, got 6 goals and 11 assists in that time. But I have got some Bukayo Saka stats to sell to you here. Okay, so that number of minutes, 1,724, is equivalent to 19 games. So he got 17 returns in the equivalent of 19 games. Last year, he had a career high 2.29 successful dribbles per 90. He had more touches in the opposition box per 90 than ever before. And he had more shots from inside the area per 90 than ever before. And he created more chances per 90 than any other player across Europe's top 5 leagues, creating 1.14 big chances per 90 that he played. Arsenal have also look like they're strengthening with Gyökeres, look like they're strengthening with Madueke. There's talk of Rodrigo, there's talk of Anthony Gordon. They get another player through the door. Does that impact how highly you are going to be rating Bukayo Saka on draft night?
I think if Gyökeres is confirmed, then Saka actually becomes a better FPL pick for draft and for FPL, because although there is going to be a bit more of a debate of who takes the penalties, Arsenal have been crying out for someone who can finish Saka's crosses for many time. So I think this is what Arsenal need. Saka needs this as well, someone to kind of be finishing his chances. And the thing with Saka is he is quite, he's very effective, but he is quite sort of, what he's going to do. He's going to cut in so often on that right, and sometimes it is quite easy to double up on him and sort of and cut out that threat. But I think if Arsenal do sign Gyökeres, it will just add a bit more chaos to that Arsenal front line. And that might be a good thing for Saka because it allows him then to be not the one that everyone kind of teams up on and marks. And maybe in times when Gyökeres is getting sort of marshalled, and it will leave space for Saka on the other side. So I think, Saka is going to have a much better season. Obviously, he should hopefully, stay a bit more injury-free this season. I think it's just his assist potential, which is so good that puts him up with a real good chance. I do think his goals, last season, even in games where he did play, he didn't score as many as I think he would have wanted, and definitely as he's capable of doing. So I expect a much better season. So I think actually injury, being a big caveat, I think he will have a really strong in 2025-26.
Will it be stronger, though, than ice-cold Cole Palmer, who over his first 2 seasons at Chelsea has outscored Saka in both seasons and has out-assisted Saka in both seasons. Finished 2023-2024 with 244 points, 22 goals, 13 assists. Went off the boil, as you said, at the back end of last season, really from January onwards, was pretty anonymous, but still finished with 15 goals and 10 assists, which I think made him third in the overall points scorers for FPL last year.
Yep.
So in a straight off race or a battle between Saka and Palmer, who's your money on?
I mean, I think it's Saka. And this sounds weird because I've just talked about how, good I think Chelsea will be with their attack and Pedro. But again, the penalty factor is key for this, because if Saka stays on penalties and Gyökeres doesn't take them off him, then he's still a great FPL pick. If Pedro takes them off Palmer, then that hurts Palmer. I think with Palmer, though, it is hard to overlook how much of a drop-off he had. At least you've got the benefit with Saka that he hasn't had the chance to get those returns because of the injuries. Whereas Palmer just didn't look himself for so many weeks. And yes, he looked a bit better in the Club World Cup, but I just worry that consistency we need along a whole season with draft. And yes, Palmer was sensational in that first season, but obviously he didn't start till game week 7 with Chelsea. And then last season, he was fantastic in the first few weeks of the season, but then, he really struggled. So I think it will be an okay season for Palmer, but I just think Arsenal are going to be signing big players to really strengthen and really push Liverpool and Man City towards that title. I don't think Chelsea are, quite as close to a title as Arsenal. I think Palmer will have a good season, but I think Saka will have a slightly better one.
I think all those things play into it as well. The fact that Arsenal are a slightly stronger side and the fact that they're also a more settled side with a settled system.
Yeah.
I think Enzo Maresca's still moving things around, moving the chess pieces apart and trying to find the best way of playing for Chelsea. And that might impact where Cole Palmer plays. Played on the right in the Club World Cup final. Played as number 10 for the most part of last season. Saka, you know what you're going to get with him.
Yeah.
He will be starting on that right-hand side week in, week out. However, there is one other player that we can't discount, particularly in draft when forward positions are so important in those early rounds. If you don't get a striker in round 1 or round 2, then you're going to really struggle to have a strong campaign. And there is no better striker, other than perhaps Erling Haaland, to lay your eyes on than Alexander Isak, who last season was the leading point scorer in terms of forwards, 23 goals and 6 assists for the Newcastle man. Finished the season with more minutes played than ever before, 211 points, being linked with a move to Liverpool. Let's assume for now he stays at Newcastle. How is he figuring amongst this top 5 in your eyes right now?
It's interesting because I think it's close between him and Palmer. I'd still put Saka number 3, I think, just because we know that Arsenal, are going to score goals and Saka's proven in that position and we know what we're going to get from him. It is a little bit more up in the air with Isak because I think if he stays at Newcastle, there is slightly less points potential than if he goes to Liverpool, just because of how many chances Liverpool create and how many goals they score. I do think it would be great for Newcastle if Isak stays, but also the penalty situation will help him. Obviously Salah won't want to give them up, so I think Isak would be slightly better on that front. But obviously, overall, I think he's still going to have a good season at Newcastle if he stays. The thing with Newcastle, though, is, at times at the end of last season, Isak didn't look himself. And I just worry that maybe, the sort of whole transfer embargo, will that start to sort of distract him a little bit? We'll have to see. If he pens down a deal or agrees to stay this season, then I think he'll have another strong season. I think him or Palmer is tight because if Palmer's on pens and gets the extra point for a goal in the midfield, it's very similar to Isak, but just slightly better. But I do think Newcastle are going to have a strong season, and with the signing of Elanga, that will help Isak. It's a really 50-50 one, I think. But I'm just going to edge towards, because of how much of a drop-off he had at the end of last season and how strong a season Isak had, I am going to just edge towards Isak in 4th, I think, and then Palmer in 5th. But it's very, very tight. And I think Isak is definitely the best forward in the game at the moment, because even if he comes in the main game at 11 million, 10.5 million, he is going to be a bit of a no-brainer, season keeper. The fixtures aren't great to start, but yeah, I mean, in draft, he is going to be probably the the biggest sort of forward to clamour towards alongside Haaland.
Does his injury track record worry you at all? Obviously, he played more minutes last year than ever before, but in his previous season, he missed large swathes of the campaign, and then in the season before, managed just 1,520 minutes. Is that a worry?
I think because of how good a season he had, I think he sort of has learned a lot about how to manage himself, and Eddie Howe has said it a lot in press conferences about there'd be previous times where we know Eddie Howe can sort of pull the wool from under our eyes about injury news and stuff. And sometimes there'd be games where Isak would be risked, and you just think, why would he risk him in the past? But now I think Eddie Howe's sort of got a right balance of when to risk him, and he's sort of taking care of him a bit more, a bit like with Saka at times at Arsenal. So, yeah, I do think Isak is going to play more minutes, and I think his injury record isn't great in the past, but I think he's at the top of his game at the moment. So I think he's in peak condition. There's a reason why Liverpool want to, potentially get him, but if they can't get that deal over the line, I still think he'll be a great asset for Newcastle. So, yeah, I don't have too many concerns about previous injury history, because I think, next season he should be sort of fit and strong to go at the start of the season.
So in terms of your top five, then we're going with Salah number 1,
yep,
Haaland number 2, Saka 3, Isak 4.
That is correct.
And Palmer 5. Okay, interesting. There's also been this that I've seen on X today. This is season-long goals projection for those just listening. It basically lists how many goals they think certain players are going to score over the course of the season. Erling Haaland is projected to be top scorer with 25 goals, which sort of correlates with you putting him ahead of Isak. Isak is second with 19.75 goals. And then it's Salah, Palmer, Watkins, Solanke, Saka, Wissa, Mateta and Wood making up the top 10. Is there anyone on this list, and it is a big list, it's got 60 players on it, that we haven't talked about today that you're looking at for your draft night and thinking that is a player who, if I walk away with him on draft night, I'm going to be very happy indeed?
I think it has to be Solanke, to be honest. I mean, it's interesting we've not talked about Watkins, because Watkins has outscored Haaland in the last 2 seasons. But with Isak and Solanke and Haaland, these assets, the reason they're so good is because they're on pens. And I think we don't get that with Watkins. So it's not as much of an attractive option. But with Solanke, being on penalties, being in a side where with Frank taking charge, he is so always about his strikers. And yeah, the way he just made Wissa into an absolute goal scoring machine, I think he is going to have a really good season, Solanke. I was really disappointed by him last season, and I do think the only way is up really for him this season. But with a new system, with a new manager, and some attacking talent behind him with Gibbs White, potentially, and also Kudus, that could be really great for Solanke's chances of getting created opportunities for him. I just really think Spurs will have a better season, and I think Solanke, with Spurs having sort of Champions League, that might not be too much of an issue, because they might well go out in that early anyway, and they can sort of focus on the league a little bit more than last season. But yeah, I just worry for Aston Villa a little bit, just because of, Watkins at times was a little bit inconsistent, and he ended the season strongly, but I'm just a bit more confident, I think, in Solanke for strikers. And yeah, he might sort of benefit from that sort of attacking talent behind him a bit more than maybe an Aston Villa, who maybe a little bit more reliant on the likes of Morgan Rogers.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Thomas Frank certainly knows how to get the best out of those strikers, doesn't he? Ivan Toney as well, before the likes of Wissa and Mbumo. Solanke could be a decent shout. I think you might be right there. Well, it's been lovely having you on today, Roberto. Thanks for joining me on our YouTube debut. And I'm looking forward to seeing the Form is Temporary making a sterling season 3 over the next few weeks. When are you back for your first episode?
So when the game launches, basically, a few days after that, probably around sort of the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, whenever the game launches. Hopefully it's around that time. We'll get our first one out. We tend to record on a Wednesday and then put it up on a Thursday morning. So yeah, hopefully it shouldn't be too way. We're hoping for some prices in the next few days, I think, and maybe a launch next week or the week after. But yeah, really excited to get back into the swing of things, and excited to keep hearing some great content from you, Dom, and really enjoyed this episode. So thanks for having me on.
No worries at all. Hopefully we can do it again very soon indeed. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us on the FPL Draft Zone, there are multiple ways to do so. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see them running along the screen now. But if you are not, I'll just tell you. We're on X and we're on Instagram at FPL Draft Zone. We're also on Blue Sky at fpldraftzone.bsky.social. And you can email us at fpldraftzone@outlook.com. We also lurk in the shadows of Reddit. We're trying to up our Reddit game this season as well, so you can find us there as well. But that is it for today's show. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope our faces have not been so much of an abomination that you never want to watch YouTube again. And until next time, enjoy your football and bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.